A stolen taxi, a fake identity, and a massive kitchen fire led me to the woman of my dreams. This isn't a love story. It's a series of unfortunate events that ended in a wedding. It's a story about how being at the absolute wrong place at the wrong time can somehow lead you exactly where you were meant to be. Before we start this journey through the wet streets of New York and the high-pressure world of gourmet catering, hit subscribe if you love stories where everything goes wrong but ends up exactly right. Now, let's get into the chaos. They say that if you want to make God laugh, you should tell him your plans. Well, 10 years ago, my plan was simple, almost boring. I was supposed to get to JFK Airport, catch a 6-hour flight to my sister's wedding in Los Angeles, and try my absolute best to avoid my ex-girlfriend, who was, of course, the maid of honor. But the universe had a much more creative script for my night. It started with a New York rainstorm so heavy it felt like the sky was falling. I stood on Fifth Avenue for 40 minutes, soaked to the bone, watching every taxi pass me by. Finally, one pulled up. I reached for the door, but a guy in a tailored suit shoved me aside, jumped in, and sped off. I was beyond desperate. My flight was in 2 hours, so when a sleek black car pulled up and the driver looked at me, I didn't wait for him to speak. I jumped into the back seat, shouting, "JFK, and I'll double the fare if you fly." It wasn't an Uber, it was a getaway car. The driver, a frantic guy named Leo, looked at me like I was a ghost. He wasn't a chauffeur, he was a guy who had just pulled off a heist of a different kind. He'd stolen a massive high-end catering order intended for a billionaire's gala. Instead of kicking me out into the rain, Leo saw the sirens in the rearview mirror and panicked. He handed me a white chef's jacket from the passenger seat and hissed, "Put this on and look busy, Nigel. The cops are behind us, and if they see a passenger, we're done." 2 minutes later, through a series of illegal U-turns and back-alley shortcuts, I wasn't at the airport. I was being shoved through the service entrance of the Waldorf Astoria. I was standing in a kitchen that smelled like expensive truffles and pure stress, pretending to be a world-class pastry chef. I don't even know how to bake a potato, let alone a 5-tier wedding cake. I was sweating, terrified, and trying to blend in with 20 professional chefs who moved like a synchronized army. That's when I saw her. Drop a fake IT in the comments if you've ever had to improvise your way out of a total disaster. Let's see who the real masters of chaos are. She was the head of the catering team, and she looked like she was about to commit a murder. Her hair was pulled back in a tight bun, and her eyes were scanning the room like a hawk looking for a weak link. She walked straight up to me, looked at my name tag, which I had pinned on upside down in my panic, and said, "Chef Nigel, you're late, you're wet, and you look like you've seen a ghost. If you don't start frosting those eclairs right now, I will personally throw you into the industrial oven and serve you as an appetizer." I didn't tell her I was a fake. I couldn't. I just grabbed a piping bag, held it like a weapon I didn't know how to use, and started praying. For the next 6 hours, I lived a lie. I followed her every command, dodging swinging pans and shouting, "Yes, chef," at everything she said. She was brilliant, terrifying, and the most beautiful woman I had ever seen under those harsh, fluorescent lights. I watched her manage 100 plates at once, her movements like a dance. Round midnight, the kitchen fire started. It started near the flambe station. Okay, maybe it was a little bit my fault. I might have knocked over a bottle of high-proof rum while trying to look like I knew what I was doing. The flames hit the curtains, and before I could even grab a towel, the sprinklers went off. It was a disaster. Cold water rained down on $5,000 worth of hors d'oeuvres, effectively ending the billionaire's gala in a matter of seconds. We were both standing in the middle of the flooded kitchen, soaked to the bone for the second time that night, covered in flour and ruined chocolate. I finally looked at her and confessed. I told her I wasn't Nigel, I wasn't a chef, and I was just a guy who got into the wrong car because he was afraid to miss a flight. If you're enjoying this absolute disaster of a night, smash that like button. It helps the channel more than you know, and honestly, Nigel needs the support. I expected her to scream. I expected her to call security and have me arrested for property damage. Instead, she did something I'll never forget. She sat down on a crate of organic lemons, looked at the soggy eclairs, and started to laugh. It wasn't a small giggle. It was a deep, soul-cleansing laugh that lasted until she had tears in her eyes. She told me her name was Sarah and that she had hated this high-stress, soulless job for 3 years. She said that watching me try to frost an eclair with garlic butter, because I couldn't tell the difference between the bowls, was the highlight of her entire career. She looked at me and said, "You're a terrible chef, Nigel, but you're a great disaster. Let's get out of here before the manager realizes the sprinklers were your fault." We spent the rest of the night walking through the quiet streets of Manhattan, still wearing our soaked, flour-stained chef whites. We found a 24-hour pizza joint that didn't care how we looked, and we talked until the sun started to peek over the skyscrapers. I told her about my sister's wedding, my ex-girlfriend, and my boring life in marketing. She told me about her dream of opening a small bakery where she never had to see a billionaire again. I missed my flight, I missed the wedding, and I got a massive bill for the kitchen damage a month later. But as I watched her walk away towards the subway that morning, I knew. I knew that every wrong turn, every stolen taxi, and every burst pipe had led me exactly where I needed to be. That everyone, is how I met the woman of my dreams. It wasn't a movie moment, it was a catastrophe. But 10 years later, I still can't frost an eclair, and Sarah still laughs at me every time I try to help in the kitchen. Success is the best revenge against a boring life, but love is the best reward for surviving the chaos. Subscribe for more stories where life's biggest fails lead to the biggest wins. I'll see you in the next one.